What if Gus Fring went to Hyland Point? I spent way too much time today trying to answer one question. Could I realistically recreate Gus Fring's meth empire in a video game using actual math from the show Breaking Bad? And if I could, how much money would he realistically be making?
I need 200 pounds per week to make this economically viable.
You would choose your own hours, of course. Come and go as you please.
You heard the man. 200 pounds a week is the quota. Naturally, I did what any totally normal, sane, and rational person would do. I booted up Schedule 1 and I tried to make that meth math real. In Schedule 1, every time you cook up a batch, you get 10 crystals. And 20 crystals can be pressed into a brick, so 2 cooks is 1 brick, nice and clean. But then I thought, wait, if a brick is a pound, then that would mean each crystal weighs 22.4 grams. That means Kyle is out here ripping bowling ball sized crystals like it's no big deal. Man's lungs are made of asbestos and ambition. This can't be right. So I turned to an expert for some advice on this addictive chemical.
We're talking 300 boxes of sinus pills.
Jesse says it's gonna take a minimum of 200 boxes of sinus pills to make 4 pounds of meth. That means that to meet Gus's quota, we're gonna need to cook 10,000 boxes of pseudo in 1 week. That's 1,432 per day. That means we would need 477 labs and 352 ovens just to keep this operation rolling. I can't fit that many thoughts in my head, let alone stations in this game. Even Gus would take one look at this and say, yeah, I'm good.
There ain't that many Smurfs in the world.
But there is another way. The P2P method. Let's check out Walter's math for this.
We're not going to need pseudoephedrine.
1 gallon of 40% aqueous methylamine solution will yield 7.4 pounds of product.
So if I were to use this method, that means I would just need to cook 27 gallons a week to be able to reach the quota. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but there is no methylamine and there is no phenylacetone. And to that I would say you're right. For this, we're gonna need a little bit of imagination.
I tell you what, boys, what say we all take a ride on my imagination flying machine?
We do have these beakers of so-called liquid meth. So we're going to use our imagination flying machine and imagine that these are our precursors for our crystal. So we're just going to have to convert all of our math into liquid math. 27 gallons means that we're going to have to cook 102,195 milliliters per week to keep up with Gus's operation needs. Now, assuming that all of these borosilicate beakers in game are 250 milliliters, that means I'll have to cook 409 beakers per week to satisfy Gus. Now, this is where my brain melted a little bit, because cooking this amount will actually bring us back to that original thought of 200 bricks being 200 pounds per week. This means we'll need just 20 labs and 15 ovens to be able to keep the flow going, and this is exactly what Gus needed. And guess what? That means that each brick actually does weigh a pound. Which means that each crystal really is 22.4 grams. Kyle is over here chiefing geodes like it's an all-you-can-smoke rock buffet. And somehow, Breaking Bad's math fits perfectly with Schedule 1's game logic. I really couldn't believe it. Of course, that does only solve our problem of cooking the meth. The real nightmare though? Mixing it all. It's gonna be hard to mix 200 bricks in a week with the space that we have left on the map. You see, Gus doesn't just want volume. He wants maximum profit. Raw product just isn't enough. It has to be cut, flavored, chemically treated, processed into something that people will pay top dollar for. So to solve the space problems, I would do all of the cooking in the barn, I would do all of the baking in the bungalow and the stash and dash, and then I would build one gigantic mixer in the docks warehouse to be able to keep up with all of this production each week. But I quickly ran into another problem. I originally set this up using 3 chemists in the docks, each working on their own 4 mix, 5 chemists on 20 labs in the barn, and then I divided the remaining 15 ovens between the stash and dash and bungalow. I set everything up, and it simply would not produce the correct amount each day. This is because the ovens have a 6-hour timer, but the labs have a 7-hour timer. In my testing, the labs in the barn consistently produce 60 beakers each and every day. But the ovens actually couldn't keep up. Although on paper the ratio looks clean at 4-3, we actually need to go 1-1. It didn't matter where I put the stations in each property, they just would not produce on time. So I put 12 ovens in the bungalow and 8 ovens in the stash and dash instead. Now, those of you who are doing the math right now, wondering how we can get all of those stations supplied automatically, I thought about it for a while too, and I decided I would actually put that sweatshop worker to good use, and use him to fill the remaining 5 ovens directly from the loading bays along with the other handlers. This ended up being very simple to set up. Every handler at the stash and dash and the bungalow takes their route directly from a loading bay into their ovens. This means that I could just park a van in the loading bay and the handlers would constantly fill up all of those ovens. Now the handler at the sweatshop, all I had to do was select his clipboard at the sweatshop and then not touch anything until I got all the way to the bungalow and assign him as well. And he will actually walk all the way between the bungalow and stash and dash to complete his tasks. So this ended up being very, very simple to set up all of these properties. And after it was done, we were projected to exceed our target of 200 pounds for the week. Consistently producing exactly 30 bricks every day after the first day warm-up period, so we could then drive them over to the docks, break down the bricks, and remix them. But was the mixer able to keep up? 30 bricks a day is a lot of product, but I'll tell you right now, I was driving myself back and forth between the warehouse and gas station like a deranged Amazon Prime driver, but yes, it did keep up. In fact, it outpaced our production and was even able to mix 34 to 36 bricks in a day, and Gus was very pleased with our final result. And finally, if you're wondering how much Gus Fring made this week while I was busting my ass, it was $1.365 million. But that's total revenue, of course. Once we subtract the cost of our precursors, mixing ingredients, and employee labor, that comes in at a total net profit of $1,154,190 per week. And that's just over $60 million a year in profit. Not too bad for a small town operation, I'd say. That means if you were to keep this running and pack it into jars, it'd take you only 9.5 weeks to hit 10 mil. But that's still nearly 24 hours of real playtime. And I don't think that's fast enough. So we're gonna have to look towards a new hero to save Hyland Point from these dirty pigs in the next episode. You let me know in the comments who you think that hero is, and we'll see if they're up to the challenge. All build layouts are linked below if you're interested in recreating Gus Fring's meth empire. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.